Today we are going to talk on several topics and keep you informed of what's actually going on. We are going to talk to Mr. Malinda Senevirathna. Good morning, sir, and thank you for being here with us this morning. Mr. Senevirathna, at the outset, let me ask you without going on much about this. Everyone is aware of the presidential election and everyone seems to be wanting to know who the candidates are. Even when we go out, people ask who is coming from the UNP or who is coming from the SLPP. Right. Is it Gotabaya Rajapaksa? Right. Is it Sajith Premadasa? Right. These are the questions that the people have at the moment. The fact that Sri Lanka is moving into this presidential election with so many candidates, we have seen this in the past as well, but with social media being active, things like that having a major role in the election system of our country, the number of candidates and this idea of people feeling like they can take over and do better than the people who are currently doing it, where is this coming from, and is this a good trend?
I think the Elections Commissioner has said that fake candidates will be banned or punished or something like that, which makes sense. You know, in the past we have had a lot of candidates putting fake candidates to get airtime and to promote them. In this instance, I think it's because Maithripala Sirisena, no one knew that he was going to be anywhere in the running for president, say 2 months before he became president. So I think that made people believe first that, you know, if someone who was not in the picture suddenly becomes president, why not me? And also the feeling that, you know, if I can't do worse than this guy. I can't do worse than any other people who are in the fray. So that is making people believe that you know, let me have a shot at this. Yeah. But the problem I have is, as you said, you know, we don't know who the candidates are. There's only talk of who might be the candidates. But it seems that within the next 2-3 weeks, we will know who the candidate of the United National Parties and from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, and whether or not Maithripala Sirisena is going to play any role or whether he is going to contest or that will be a bit clear in terms of the candidates. Yeah. That is one thing, but you know, it's not just about the candidates and personalities, but it's about the policies that they. Now we have heard Ranil Wickremesinghe say he's going to give a gym to every village, and Sajith Premadasa has said that he's going to give 2 pairs of shoes to all the school children, that he's going to follow his father's policies. Let us not forget that you know, Ranasinghe Premadasa did a lot. You know, there's all the positives and the negatives, and the positives were quite. I mean, he was a very energetic, determined kind of leader. But let us not forget that he was in charge when about 60,000 people were killed brutally. So if you are going to talk about continuing the father's policies, is that what we should expect? Then we have Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who has spent a lot of time, it seems, without announcing that he's going to be the candidate, but he has put together teams of professionals. He seems to be more ready about what he wants to do. He's like doing the homework and you know, putting a plan together, which is more positive. And I suppose the others will also, let's hope that they also come up with some solid policies rather than talking about these bracelets and chewing gum and that kind of stuff.
Mrs. Senevirathna, now in the past, especially the 2015 government that came into power. Now, as I just before the show mentioned, we were on a separate program last evening, and the outcome of that program was that there is the rule of law problem in our country. Now, 2015 was a change, as everyone called it, and in 2015 people said the main slogan was also rule of law, transparency, good governance and things like this. Now again we are heading into an election and people are slowly trying to put in these nice slogans and these nice faces.
Yeah, one of the saddest and most tragic things that happened over the course of the 4 years that passed since that change, quote unquote, is that all these words, good governance, transparency, accountability, rule of law, independence of the judiciary, they became cuss words, like, you know, like Kunuharapa, say in Sinhala. You can't really talk about Yahapalne anymore in an election. You'll have to use some other terminology to sell the same product. And no, people are not going to buy that. People are not going to believe that because they brought to power a government, a regime, which either did not understand or did not care about the promises that they made regarding these very same things. So it is typical during, I mean, for years, for election after election, we have seen people talking about abolishing the executive presidency.
Yeah.
But since of late, it has been about the governance issue, rule of law and things like that. Rule of law went under thanks to the war. For 30 years, no one had to talk about it. So it's not that the crime rate went up, but the crimes became more visible. So it's a long-standing problem that has not been addressed. And you know, the death penalty probably is seen as by some as a response and a solution, which I don't agree with.
There's a court case also that has been initiated by you regarding the death penalty as well. We'll talk about it also during our show. Now, Mr. Senevirathna, there seems to be a pattern in what is going on in Sri Lanka. When there is an election around the corner, certain incidents take place among the public, and then those incidents lead to an outcome where one possible candidate accuses another possible candidate or his or her party. Then that becomes a communal issue. Racism gets involved. All sorts of things. We have seen this in the past maybe 10 to 15 years. This seemed to be the pattern. Now, currently, we are also looking at an incident where the United States wants a certain person to lead our projects in our country. We see a situation where other Western nations also try to very actively get involved. Then, through matters like the loans that we are obtaining from countries like China, there is that portion also playing its part in the Sri Lankan political sphere. What do the people want? And are we getting what we want?
What you said, Chaturang, you know, it's very interesting. Now, I think Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe gave an assurance to the Bar Association that all these agreements with the United States will not be signed within this year. So it might happen January 1st if he's still in power. But it's very interesting that the US ambassador has sent a letter to President Maithripala Sirisena about getting these things off the ground. Now, why is she so impatient, right? There are no countries that love other countries. They follow their interests, their own.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And is it because, are we going to read it as a sign that she wants this done because she fears that this regime might be out of power in the course of the next few months? And all China, India, Japan, and of course United States, their interests, these are very distant from the interests of the people. We have a problem about cost of living. We have problems about representation. We have problems about belonging and our sense of citizenship. Who are we in our country when our representatives look after the interests of people in other countries?
Absolutely.
And where do we get represented? You know, we elect people, but they are following some other agenda. We elect people to you know, establish good governance, rule of law, and they are violating those very same principles, you know, 24 hours before the, you know, after being elected to power. So where do we go? Which is why, you know, your first question regarding other candidates. Now we have the National People's Movement, and we have this Ulapane Amduros and Lasil de Silva's Mahajana Sabhava, where they are actually formulating policies. They are trying to say that they are saying that these politicians, these political parties, let us not be fooled by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna as a new party. They are just a breakaway faction of the SLFP, which grew larger than the SLFP and dwarfed the SLFP to almost nothing. And people have rejected, people have understood that these people have not done much for the people of this country in absolute terms. So of course, under Mahinda Rajapaksa, we defeated the LTT, but that is not a license to be corrupt or be arrogant or, you know, kill people, whatever. But I see that as a positive trend, that people are now thinking outside that the solution is not these people are part of the problem. If in fact if we had first past the post system in place in a general election, I think most of these 225 people will be out. You know, good people with capabilities and good standing in each electorate, independent candidates could make a big show. I mean, they could come in significant numbers that can change the arithmetic, impact policy making, and also start a different kind of thinking, people to think in a different kind of way in terms of politics and governance.
Mrs. Senevirathna, I want to ask this question also now. When we take a look at the people who come in to vote, there is now, last time the presidential election was held, the 5.2 million was the value that was spoken about. Then they said this was the amount that we want from. Now if you take a look at, there are new voters coming in each year. The younger crowd, the people who are going out of school, they also have the tendency now, as we spoke about social media aspect as well, to come into this whole political sphere, rather than probably like slightly back in the day where that age group didn't really wasn't well informed. But now that's not the case. Right. But this particular presidential election, as of right now, we are looking at a situation where the Elections Commission might not be able to do the voters list for the 2019-2018 period, and they might depend on the previous voters list. That has an impact because the young voters who are coming in, that value stands at about 200,000 to 300,000. That might make some significant impact.
It depends on where they are going to vote. Now if you look at the voting patterns and you look at 2010, 2015 and 2018 February, the local government elections. Now, Champika Ranawaka has said that the floating vote is about 5 million. I don't know from where these numbers come, but that could be the case. And new voters could be 200,000, could be more, I really don't know. But I think the Election Commissioner knows what he's doing, and
Chairman of the Elections
Chairman of the Elections Commission, and I think they will get everyone registered on time. I assume so, otherwise there will be a big problem. But these new voters also, let us not go overboard with it, because in a presidential election, our pattern has been getting rid of people who have not delivered. Why was Malinda Rajapaksa, even at that moment, the most popular politician in the country? On the 8th of January, he was still the most popular, but people decided he has had enough. We love him, but he has to go. We vote people out of power rather than vote people into power. And just because we have social media, Facebook, Twitter, all these platforms, what really happens is very few people actually talk politics when you take the numbers. Most people are chatting with, they're doing all kinds of other stuff, using the data that they buy. But whether it is going to be a significant factor or not is not yet established. But it could be. It could be, but then we have to see where do they want to go? Who are they going to vote for? Now, we know that one of the reasons that Maithripala Sirisena won was that the floating vote went that way. Yeah. It is not the minority parties or the North and Eastern. Malinda Rajapaksa lost badly in other provinces. Now, whether a United National Party candidate can grab that, whether that floating vote will still vote again, is of course, I think it's unlikely, but we can't predict without numbers. And it seems, judging from the February 2018 election, that the Rajapaksa faction has recovered. And they are getting better. I mean, they can be better because the government's popularity is going down. We've had the garbage issue. We had the National Tawhid Jamaat, the Easter Sunday attacks, the collapse of the security system in this country, the negligence, incompetence, corruption. Are we going to vote these people again? It has to be a very a candidate from that part of the political spectrum has to establish himself or herself as a very different candidate from the regime, has to separate himself or herself from all the bad things that have happened. I find it very difficult to believe that there is a candidate, such a candidate.
Ms. Senevirathna, now you brought us to an interesting point. You spoke about this whole several incidents that have happened and the fact that the negligence part of the government, from the part of the government, played a role in all of this. Then we come to the issue of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. We have seen the result of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. We've heard the President himself speaking against it now. And then we have heard people like Dr. Jayampathy Wickramaratne who were initially saying, you know, these were very good, the objectives will be achieved. Now saying there were unanticipated issues. Now, the people who have created this issue, we have to also remember that almost 250 lives were lost as a result of this Easter Sunday attacks, the April 21st attacks as we call it. All this because several people who wanted to very quickly clip the president's executive powers are now saying, you know, we didn't anticipate this to happen.
Yeah, Chaturanga, I find it, you know, shocking that Dr. Jayampathy Wickramaratne comes before the people and says, that is your job, for God's sake, right? I don't believe in God, but you are supposed to be an expert on her. You are supposed to have consulted so many people. But we have seen constitutional amendments from, except for one or two, except for the 17th, I believe. Since the J.R. Jayawardene brought the constitution, every single amendment has been to further the interests of the ruling party. Even the 19th Amendment, for all the beautiful things they said about it, it was about making sure that the previous regime will not be able to get back to power, or that was the intention. But that I don't think, I mean, it didn't pan out the way they wanted. But you don't do amendments in a hurry. You look at, you have to see what kind of impact this can have, what are the loopholes, what kind of chaos could be created, what are the contradictions. That 19th Amendment is full of holes. From the definition of a national government, which was left deliberately vague so that they can, do away with the ceiling, and to the powers of the president, we have to go to Supreme Court to get a determination on whether the president could or not. So it seems sloppy at best, but most probably it's a very pernicious, partisan kind of exercise in which Dr. Jayampathy Wickramaratne and others, and in fact everyone who voted for it, I mean, let's not forget that the entire parliament except one person voted for except Sarath Weerasekara, I think 2 or 3 were abstained or were absent, voted for it. Now they are saying we did this based on the President's assurance that the 20th Amendment on electoral reform will be brought up. Who's buying that? I'm not buying that. They are supposed to be lawmakers. They are supposed to brief themselves. They are supposed to read these documents, analyze them, and if they don't have the intellect to do that, get the proper advice from. They have money and the contacts, resources to find that. So I find it very disturbing that these people are so flippant about constitutional reform. It's the constitution of the republic. You can't do it like you're doing midterm test or some random assignment on Monday that the teacher said will happen. Yeah, you can't do it like that. But that's how they have assessed the people. They can sell us any kind of nonsense, and we'll have. But we have elected them, and we have to submit to we have to become victims of their incompetence.
Mrs. Senevirathna, final few minutes of the show, but I want to very quickly ask this question from you as well. We touched on this a while back about the US involvement, especially with regard to the new agreements that we are trying to reach. The fact that the UNP government, whenever it is in power, the understanding is that the UNP government has a good link with the West. That is the understanding that has been established among the people. Now when you come to take a look at this, Malinda Rajapaksa was with China, very evidently. Now the UNP government is looks like it's with the United States and the countries that are allies with the United States. Now the fact that we are balancing between it's better than giving the country to Malinda Rajapaksa's China and it's better than giving the country to Ranil Wickremesinghe's USA. We have come to a situation we are now weighing the odds of giving the country away to a different country.
Right.
We are talking about Hambantota going to China, that's okay, we are getting this from that.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of bargaining mechanism is what the people are now looking at.
The thing is, it doesn't matter if you are getting hammered. The identity of the person who is beating us down is irrelevant, whether it is China or the United States. Now, in the global economy and the current balance of power, I read somewhere that by 2020 or 2022, China will replace the United States as the strongest economy in the world. Now, there is a decline in the West. I mean, we are not talking about Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, but the debt of North America and Europe is owned by China and Japan. So, if you are going to submit to some country, you don't submit yourself to a declining nation, right? But this all these agreements, the problem is now people are saying this is going to do this, that and the other, but no one has read this.
Yeah.
So that is unfair.
Absolutely.
So we have to go with this simple thing. Just as no one has can say this is bad without reading it, no one can say this is good without reading it either. So the government is saying this has not been signed. Of course it has not been signed. So just because it has not been signed does not mean that we need not, does it mean that we should not know? There must be some draft. I have said this earlier. So there has to be some discussion paper, some concept paper, something which should be made public. Without that, we have to go with history. The United National Party's long history of signing agreements without telling the president, like in the ceasefire agreement or the cabinet, pushing things through in a very surreptitious manner, and the long history of the United States of America in destroying this world. Right? When they say we are going to bring democracy, everyone is terrified, because for them bringing democracy is destroying, killing people also. What is the United States? It has a history of 200 years, little more than 200 years. You take China. It has the experience of 4,500 years. And we have 2,500 years, good, bad, ugly, everything. But we have a culture that has come through all that. We have lived through that. We have worked through that. We have faced calamities, tragedies, all that. Bad rulers, good rulers, everything. But that's experience. And these guys are telling us this is how we should run our country. That is sick. That is sick, I think. For us to believe that what they say should be taken seriously, of course we will listen to them, but we should not follow their dictates or the dictates of China. For that matter, we don't have to listen to anyone. Why don't our leaders trust our people to make a call on this, on all these matters, whether it is an agreement about like so far, whether it is about what should be done with the Hambantota harbour. Tell us what you are planning, right? And so that we can now, I think it's a positive sign that Ranil Wickremesinghe has had at least a discussion with the Bar Association. But Bar Association is one professional organization, there are others. In the Parliamentary Select Committee, which is a farce, you get some really dubious individuals questioning other people. And it was pointed out that there were loopholes which prevented proper oversight over certain procedures, especially about the Sharia University. And it's Ravi Karunanayake who is asking the questions. This man with a huge cloud over his head.
Ms. Senevirathna, thank you very much for your views this morning. We spoke on several topics. We moved on from the presidential candidacy to the United States agreement as well. Very interesting points made by Mr. Senevirathna as always. So thank you for being here with us this morning and talking to us. We are talking about the presidential candidature and the agreements that are taking place because there seems to be a direct link that can be established between the two, Mr. Senevirathna, at the moment. So we will keep you updated about what is going on in the country. As Mr. Senevirathna said, in a few weeks we'll be able to know at least who the candidates are, so that then we can, the country, the general public can look at the policies they bring forward and then make a decision moving forward. That's all we have for you from Newsline this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good day.
News First, Newsline with